He said that SEC may 200 ka dito.
Pero nang dalhin na sa Senado ang kaso,
conversations between me and the President, Your Honor.
Yung 200
nabigo ang Senado na mapakwenta sa kalihim.
Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution provides that the Senate or the House of Representatives or any of its respective committees may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. The rights of persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. The power of inquiry with a process to enforce it is an essential and appropriate auxiliary to the legislative function. A legislative body cannot legislate wisely or effectively in the absence of information respecting the conditions which the legislation is intended to affect or change. This video is about legislative investigations.
Hindi kasangkot dito, no? Pero kapatid ka.
A lawmaker in the upper chamber wants the alleged overpriced and outdated laptop be investigated in the Senate.
Ang pagpasa po ng SO2 for the importation of more or less 150,000 metric tons of sugar.
The Senate or the House of Representatives or any of its respective committees may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation. The power of inquiry is an essential and appropriate auxiliary to the legislative action. It has been remarked that the power of legislative investigation may be implied from the express power of legislation and does not itself have to be expressly granted. Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution regulates the power of Congress to conduct legislative investigations by providing a threefold limitations. First, the power must be exercised in aid of legislation. Second, it must be in accordance with the duly published rules of procedure. Third, the rights of persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. In addition, the power of Congress to commit a witness for contempt terminates when the legislative body ceases to exist upon its final adjournment.
Who may be summoned under Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution? In the case of Senate versus Ermita, it specified who may and who may not be summoned to Section 21 hearings. This section refers specifically to inquiries in aid of legislation under which anybody for that matter may be summoned, and if he refuses, he can be held in contempt of the House. The power of investigation necessarily includes the power to punish a contumacious witness for contempt. Acts punished as legislative contempt. Physical obstruction of the legislative body in the discharge of its duties. First, physical assault upon its members for actions taken or words spoken in the body. Second, obstruction of its officers in the performance of their official duties. Third, prevention of members from attending so that their duties might be performed. And fourth, contumacy in refusing to obey orders to produce documents or give testimony, which was a right to compel. However, this power to punish may not be claimed by local legislative bodies. This power to punish is sui generis. This exercise of the legislature of contempt power is a matter of preservation and independent of the judicial branch. You might be wondering, when may a witness in an investigation be punished for contempt? The answer is, when a contumacious witness's testimony is required in a matter into which the legislature or any of its committees has jurisdiction to. In short, the investigation must be in aid of legislation. Another question may arise: for how long may a private individual be imprisoned by the legislature for contempt? Answer: for House of Representatives, until the final adjournment of the body. For Senate, offender could be imprisoned indefinitely by the body, provided that the punishment did not become so long as to violate due process. Rights of persons. The third limitation of Section 21 entails that the legislative investigation is circumscribed by the Constitution. It underscores fundamental rights such as the right against self-incrimination, unreasonable searches and seizures, and to demand that the Congress observe its own rules as part of due process. These rules of procedures serve as procedural safeguards in legislative investigations. They guarantee that proceedings are orderly, effective, and efficient. More importantly, they shield the witnesses appearing before the Senate or its committees from unnecessary, unreasonable, or arbitrary action on the part of the inquiring body of its members. Hence, they are the standards upon which the validity of any actions undertaken by the Senate or its committees shall be measured.
Now, to know more about legislative inquiry, let's take a look at the case of Neri versus Senate Committee on Accountability of Public Officers. This case is about the Senate investigation of anomalies concerning the NBN ZTE project. NEDA Secretary Romulo Neri was invited by the Congress to testify before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. During one of the hearings, former NEDA head Romulo Neri refused to answer 3 questions involving his conversations with President Arroyo, on the ground that they are covered under the executive privilege. Because of this, the Senate cited him in contempt and ordered his arrest. Neri then filed a case against the Senate with the Supreme Court. On March 25, 2008, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Neri and upheld the claim of executive privilege.
Did you report the attempted bribe offer to the President? Did you?
I mentioned it to the President, Your Honor.
And what did she tell you?
She told me don't accept it.
And then that's it?
Yes, Your Honor, because we had other things to discuss during that time.
And then after the President told you do not accept it, what did she do? And how did you report it to the President? In the same context that it was offered to you?
I remember it was over the phone, Your Honor.
Hindi nga. Paano nyo ni-report? Inoperan ako ng bribe na 20 million ni Chairman Abalos or what? How did you report it to her?
Well, I said, Chairman Abalos offered me 200 million for this, Your Honor.
Okay, that clear?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
That clear?
I think so. I think so, Your Honor.
Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution has made explicit the limitations on the power of legislative investigation. First, it must be in aid of legislation. Second, it must be in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. And third, the rights of the persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. The requirement that the investigation be in aid of legislation is an essential element for establishing the jurisdiction of the legislative body. It is a requirement wherein the totality of legislative power is possessed by Congress. It is not necessary that every question propounded to a witness must be material to a proposed legislation. The materiality of the question must be determined by its direct relation to any proposed or possible legislation.